The Love, Life, and Lose Weight podcast will teach you the art and science of changing your habits around food. If you know what to do, but can't figure out why you're just not doing it, this is the right podcast for you. I'm your host, Advanced Certified Weight and Life Coach, Heather Beardsley. I've helped hundreds of women just like you figure out how to think and eat like a normal eater, lose weight, and love life on the journey to goal weight and beyond. Hey, welcome to episode 55, Secrets to Eating Less and Feeling Satisfied. I'm going to give you all of them. How awesome is that? All right, let's put it into context first. There are many important tenets for weight loss. Learning how to eat less and feel satisfied is one of the top two. The other top two point is to learn how to restrict the number of times that you overeat in a week or a month so that you don't interrupt the process of weight loss as you learn how to more often feel satisfied with eating a little bit less so that scale can move. There are two parts of the winning formula for sustainable weight loss. I'm going to say it one more time. The first part is being aware of how often you overeat, because we know that overeating will always be part of your life. Even so-called normal eaters who've never had a weight issue sometimes overeat. For those of us who do struggle with our weight and can't quite figure out, how to keep it at a level that we want to keep it at, our work is to figure out, become aware of how often we're overeating. Learn what our numbers are with how often we can overeat and still lose weight. There is a number that's right for everyone. And part of your work in learning how to lose weight sustainably is to stay aware of how often you're overeating. Today, we're talking about the other main tenet of weight loss, which is when you don't overeat, learning how to eat a little bit less when you're not overeating and still feel satisfied. There's this great quote which touches on this by Charles Spurgeon. He says, "You say if I had a little more, I should be very satisfied. You make a mistake. If you are not content with what you have, you would not be satisfied if it were doubled." And the quote is so great because it really touches on this riddle or this thought error, if you will, where the brain equates satisfaction with an amount of food. If you think about it, we tend to, what do we do to figure out if we're going to be satisfied with something? We look at the amount of food, and the brain makes some sort of prediction about how the amount of food is what satisfies us. And again, it's a thought error because satisfaction that we're talking about here is emotional satisfaction. This is not physical satisfaction. And the differentiation between the two is going to make all the difference for you. So, when we learn how to lose weight by learning how to be satisfied with eating a little bit less food over time until we get to our happy weight, we have to learn how to be emotionally satisfied with less food and be tuned in with what is physically enough food. Those are two totally different things. So think about this. A lot of us, before we figure out this riddle, if you will, of how to be satisfied with less food, we notice the point when we're no longer hungry and we feel actually physically satisfied. That's a physical satisfaction, right? I'm not hungry. I can tell there's food in my stomach. Like if I ask my stomach, do I need more? The stomach's answer is no. But our brain is likely to say, no, I want more. And that is a lack of emotional satisfaction. So the physical part is more like facts. You're either physically satisfied or you're not. And if you feel like this is something that's slippery for you or you can't quite pin down, you just need to work on translating your body's physical signals a little bit more adeptly. And we can talk about that. We will talk about that. Um, if there's lack of emotional satisfaction with a little bit less food, we have to work on your thoughts and beliefs around equating amounts of food with being emotionally satisfied. And there's a great example that I'll give you, which is the French paradox. If you all have ever been to a French restaurant or France itself, you know that as an American, when the plate comes, our first automatic thought is like, where's the food? What? That's not enough food. This tiny amount of food on the plate. That just shows that you've been conditioned to believe that your emotional satisfaction has to do with an amount of food. But the French are so great at this. They don't equate an amount of food with satisfaction. In fact, it's probably quite the opposite, where they actually use a smaller amount of food to make you sit up a little straighter and pay attention and slow down, take your time, savor each bite. And when we start to do that, you can see that the quality of the ingredients, the atmosphere in which you have it, the company in which you keep, the taste, the texture, the temperature, the play of different um, tastes of food against each other, sweetness with sour, or bitter with savory and salty. These can all create immense emotional satisfaction without you needing to be physically full. So, this is the American paradox that we're overcoming in this episode. You're going to start this work today. It is the work of a lifetime. It's not something that is going to be solved and done by the time you finish listening to this episode. But my hope is that I plant some really good seeds in your brain and I give your brain a challenge, which is to reverse this idea that your satisfaction with the amount of food that you eat has nothing to do with the amount. That the amount of food, we can actually train our brains to be satisfied with a little bit less in order to allow ourselves to eat a little bit less food so that we can lose the weight that we want to lose. Okay. So the main point is we're challenging this internal habit of what's enough by using the physical feedback of what our stomach says rather than just listening to what our thought chatter says about what's enough food. So go back to your experience, say, with toddlers, if you have any. Hopefully you do. When we feed babies or toddlers, well, you've all seen this, and it's interesting, right? I think it takes a lot of Americans by surprise to see when a baby or a toddler and you're feeding them when they've had enough. Well, first, let's back up. Before they've had enough, they're interested. They're focused on the spoon coming toward their mouth, right? They're kind of opening up their mouth like a little baby bird. You can see that they want more. And then all of a sudden, something happens inside of that little child. And when you bring the food toward them, they turn their head away. This is the innate sense of what's enough working perfectly in a human being. And I do think maybe there are some medical exceptions to this, but for the most part, we all have this innate sense still available to tap into. But go back to the babies and toddler thing. And I know I did this with my kids. As a mother, I had some sense of like what would be enough food for my two boys. And if they turned their head before I thought it was enough, I would encourage them to eat more. And this is what happens because of the nature of our brains, kind of being geared toward sometimes overeating because we've been conditioned to eat more than what is enough. And, that can start in parenting. It can start in the family where, like, you finish your plate. We've all been subject to this in one form or another, or at least seen it in other families. If your family of origin didn't encourage you to clean your plate rather than listen to your feedback from your body about when you had had enough food. So, safe to say, if you've had trouble keeping an ideal weight or your happy weight, and you're constantly trying to lose weight, you've probably lost touch with this innate sense. But don't worry, we can get you back there because you have this beautiful brain that can learn new habits, which is amazing. So just take that to heart that you have an internal mechanism. And I have a couple of ways to help you tap back into that. And this is where I'm giving you my secrets. Okay. So I'm going to start with this idea of Hara Hachi Bu. Maybe you've listened to the Blue Zones series with Dan Buettner. I think it runs on Netflix. And he studies the longest lived people on earth, like different from different countries and different places, and they study the habits of these people to try to figure out, like, what is it about their lifestyle, their eating habits, their spirituality, all kinds of different things. And this Hara Hachibu is from the country of Japan on the island of Okinawa. The older generation of this island community in Okinawa practices something called Hara Hachibu, Hara Hachi, Hachi, and then Bu, Bu. There's a couple of other ways that you can spell it, but basically, the translation of those three words means eating to 8/10 full or 8 parts full. And that refers to the capacity of your stomach. So what they're doing is they're talking about eating to fill 8 parts of their stomach with full with food and leaving 2 parts of their stomach empty. So they're not eating to completely full with their food. And the Okinawans practice this as like almost like a badge of honor. Like it's part of how they self-identify. We never eat to completely full. We always leave 2 parts empty. And that is what creates a perfect maintenance weight for them for life. Okay, so this is a distinction. Harahachi Bu is 8 parts full, eating to 8 parts full, and that creates maintenance. So, and I'm going to go over like how you can translate this into a weight loss approach. And so I was thinking about this a lot and my clients who lose weight, and I started asking them, like, I would talk to them about Harahachibu, and I say, it sounds like you're leaving a certain fraction of your stomach free of food. And when you lose weight, out of 10 parts of your stomach, how many parts do you think you're leaving empty when you are noticing that you're stopping and because you've had physically enough food, right? You're not eating for maintenance, you're eating for weight loss. And more often, I kept noticing that when they were guessing, they were telling me, well, I think it's about 7/10 full for weight loss. And they agreed that eating to 8/10 full probably would more often than not lead to maintenance. So, this is what I'm offering you. I'm offering you a strategy for how to visualize how full you're filling your stomach with food to create weight loss and or maintenance. This can be really helpful because when we just say, well, eat a little bit less, we don't really know how to implement that. Like we've been so used to looking at a plate of food that when we ask ourselves to eat less, we just automatically feel restricted and we feel like we want more, or we're being like cheated out of the food that we used to have. And therefore, it's not as enticing to do that. But if we just stay with this analogy of Parahachibu and we start to implement it for maintenance and 7/10 full, um, let's think about what that means. Like visualize it. And to do this is the second part of what I'm offering you, which is this visualization of a water balloon. We've all had water balloon fights and filled up balloons with water. So let's visualize that to try to figure out what 7/10 full feels like in the practicing of it. What would it be like? So picture an empty water balloon, right? It's got nothing in it. It's completely empty. So that's you with active hunger, right? There's nothing in your stomach. There's nothing in your stomach. No food, at least. So when you start to fill up a water balloon, try to think about what that looks like visually and stopping at half full. So the water balloon is not completely stretched, right? Like there is obviously tension around the outside of the balloon because it's half full of water, but it's still like a little bit saggy, right? There's still some slack in that surface tension around the balloon. And half full is something that I think we can all sort of relate to. And when we're trying to find 7/10 full, we're just going 2/10 above that. So these are all markers that I'm giving you as you start to increase your awareness of eating, picturing how can I know when I get to 7/10 full? Well, you're going to want to definitely pause at about half full. So let's break this down into like beginning of eating all the way to 7/10. Okay. There's, let's see, there's like 8 steps. Okay. You can go to the episode notes and copy these for yourself if you want to copy them. Okay. So, first, before you ask yourself to eat, and I went over this in the previous episode, go back there if you're an emotional eater. Okay. Don't expect yourself to be successful trying to eat to 7/10 full to create weight loss if you're emotionally upset. Okay. We want you attending to your nervous system first before you put yourself in front of food, which is likely the thing that you've used to feel better, right? Like it's going to be hard for you to do that. So you attend to your emotions, do your feelings work, do some meditation, try to relax a little bit and attend to all that before you put yourself in front of food. Okay. That's number one. Number two, before you make the choice to eat, of course, we always want you noticing that you have at least noticed in the past hour that you have active hunger signals, which means your water balloon analogy for your stomach is empty. Okay, that means we're good to eat. Because if you're eating and if you're sitting down to eat to 7/10 full and you've just had a snack an hour ago, you still have food in your stomach, right? And trying to figure out 7/10 full when you already have part of your stomach full of food from having eaten an hour ago, that's not going to work either. The best time to really figure out how to figure out 7/10 full is to come to the table with an empty stomach. Okay. That's number two. Number three, this is again pre work. You have to set the environment and your focus. That means the environment needs to be completely free of distractions. No TV, no talking, maybe even you with a pen and paper so you can write down some notes. And I want you to focus on your food to do this. This is a brand new habit that you're practicing, right? Think about when you first learned, I don't know, the Pythagorean theorem. You didn't have TV on in the side. You had to really focus on what you were doing. You've got to be aware of what your body feels like, the food going down, what that feels like, noticing when your hunger decreases, noticing what that's like. There's no way you're going to be able to do that with The Price is Right running in the background or music or a bunch of kids or whatever. So, hey, look, if you need to practice eating this way by scheduling it in your calendar when you're alone, do that. Like whatever it takes, do it. Um, and then I also want your environment to be sort of appealing, right? We don't want to eat in a stressful, messy desk in front of your work computer. That's not a good idea either. You want to sit at a table and, like you can make it appealing as well. Remember, we're trying to increase emotional satisfaction as we're noticing when we're physically satisfied. And part of emotional satisfaction, think back to the French example, is having an appealing environment in which to feed yourself. Okay. So clear the table, use a cloth napkin if you want to, make it a ritual that feels good. Okay. Now, step number 4 is to voice your intention before you eat. And for hara hachibu, for those Okinawans, they actually say hara hachibu. And you could say, right, because we're not doing hara hachibu, we're doing 7/10 full. So maybe you just say 7/10 full. I'm looking for 7/10 full. You could just say that. I mean, this is like analogous to a focus of prayer that some of you might do before you eat, right? It's an intention of what is the tone in which you want to be eating. So for us, we're practicing this new habit. It's like I'm going to look for 7/10 full. Um that is my goal for eating this way. So voice an intention. That's step 4. Step number 5. I want you, even before you take your first bite, to visualize yourself like there's a camera in the room on you and you're watching yourself. I want you to visualize the moment when you stop. I want you to pretend that you can go inside yourself and feel that physical and emotional satisfaction. And then I want you to see yourself putting that fork down. Sometimes I like to do like I was taught with like how to eat politely is to turn the tines of the fork down. That's very sort of ritualistic, and the tines down on the fork at an angle across your plate really says it marks the end of the eating ritual, doesn't it? So you could use that. You could use something else. You could put your napkin on top of your plate, but whatever you choose to mark the end of the eating when you found physical and emotional satisfaction, you're going to do some sort of action to indicate that it's over, right? Okay. Now, at step 5, we're ready, or sorry, step 6, we're ready to actually start eating. So just notice steps 1 through 5 was all pre-work to get you ready. Now, for step number 6 for eating, there are a bunch of little subset steps for the eating process, all the way from first bite to last bite. And again, you can get these notes on the episode description or on Instagram. Okay, step 1, when you eat slowly. If you know you're a fast eater, use a bite timer or a bite timer app. Um, Slow Eats is one of them that a lot of my clients really like. And the feedback I get from my clients is that about 35 seconds between bites is a good place to start. Any more than that starts to feel really tedious and like it's just taking too long. I mean, you could start with 15 or 20 seconds and see if that's helping you to just slow down. Okay, why do we want you to slow down? We want you to slow down so that you can actually focus on enjoying your bites. Okay. And that goes to number 2, staying aware of and attached to your physical cues about your decreasing hunger with each bite and your increasing physical satisfaction, right? There's no checking out here or going unconscious. Okay. This is a practice of awareness of what it's like to eat when you focus on getting to the point where you're 7/10 full. Okay. Number 3, this is a marker you're looking for. The first marker is to notice when you're no longer physically hungry. That should happen somewhere in the eating to half full, somewhere in the bottom half of being like eating to half full. For some of my clients, this happens within 3 bites. For some of my clients, it doesn't go away until they're about half their stomach capacity is filled with food. Okay, so just notice like, oh, I'm no longer hungry. That's your first marker. Number 4 is to make sure you're enjoying your food. I know that this is kind of like an exercise. I'm making it kind of clinical here, but I don't want you to forget to enjoy your food, right? You can staying aware of like your increasing physical satisfaction can happen at the same time that you're allowing for the enjoyment, your sensory enjoyment of your food, the taste, the texture, the temperature, the flavor, all of it. Okay. It's really important for you to allow yourself to enjoy your food at the same time. Okay. And you're gonna kind of attend back and forth. Like you'll be enjoying your bite. And then maybe as you let your bite timer go through, you feel the food go down your esophagus. And sometimes, especially when I'm having like warm food, I can feel the food kind of dropping into my stomach. That's kind of cool. And when I feel the food dropping into my stomach, especially if I've been very hungry, like if I have what I call big H hunger, it's not excessive hunger, but it's like I'm ready to eat. And I feel that food dropping into my stomach. That is like so satisfying to me. I think for everybody, right? It's like you have natural mechanisms built into your physical body that are supposed to give you this satisfying feeling of sating your hunger, that satisfaction. Like, yes, I've been hungry and here's the food. It tastes so good. I can notice that there's food like in my stomach. And that brings us to number 5. This is the second marker. Okay. Number 5 is your second marker that you're looking for. The second marker is not only are you not hungry anymore, but you can also sense that there is a massive food in your stomach, but you're not quite at 7/10 yet. Like you can tell you're getting close. And usually that's equated with about half full. So you only have, if you notice that you're no longer hungry and you can sense mass in your stomach, and you're getting close to 7/10, that marker is more often than not around 50%. But, your experience could be different. So just make some notes on this. All right. When you're at your second marker, this is when you know that you're getting close to your eating being over, right? Because you're just a few bites away from 7/10 full. 2/10 is left. Like, and I love asking my clients this question, like, if you have 2/10 left, if you're at the marker number 2, you're about half full, right? How many bites do you think equates to each 10th left? And I get a range of different answers for between like 1 or 2 bites, all the way up to 10 bites. And this is, of course, individual and subjective, but it also shows that we're not really sure, like, because we haven't focused this much on the act of eating. But if you think about it, if we are really focused on getting to our goal weight finally, sustainably, without feeling restricted, this is the work that's going to make all the difference for you. Okay. So we're at about half full. We're not hungry. And we can sense there's mass in our stomach. We're going to slow down. We're going to pay attention because we're nearly there. And that's when you get to your third marker, which is 7/10 full. And this is a marker that only you will know when you have gotten there. The truth is, when you practice this process, you're going to go past it, you're going to undershoot it, and sometimes you're going to hit it right on the nose. And how do you know? How do you know if you've been eating to 7/10 full enough? Well, the scale will go down. Okay. And it won't go down excessively, right? But it will go down in a way that feels like the right amount of weight to lose that doesn't feel too easy and it doesn't feel too hard. Okay. So only you will know. For me, I told my brain, like, brain, tell me when I'm at 7/10. And usually what happens is my brain asks me a question. It's like, are we there? And I know when my brain is saying, are we there? I pretty much know that we're there because I know my brain just wants to have a few more bites and it probably always will. And that's okay. That's how brains work. But as soon as it's like, I think we're there, but maybe you could have a few more bites, like, it's like, nope, that's the time to put the fork down. Um, and here's the coolest part. If you've been really enjoying the environment, you've been eating slowly, you've actually planned to eat for food that you actually want to eat, your emotional satisfaction should be pretty close to the physical satisfaction of eating to 7/10 full. It shouldn't feel too hard. You're certainly not hungry anymore. You can tell that there is a mass of food in your stomach, right? But what also is a marker for more of my clients than not is that you're almost at the part where maybe you start to feel the stretching sensors of your stomach engage. It's like if I had a few more bites, I might start to feel my stomach stretch. There are stretching sensors in your stomach. And we know that when we eat to like 100% full, that is like not enjoyable, right? That's 10 out of 10 full. 9 out of 10 full would be uncomfortable, but a little bit less so. 8/10 full is sort of the Goldilocks of eating. That's the maintenance um, percentage that we eat. And then 7/10 full is just 1/10 below that. So it's not a hard reach to sell this to your brain. And if you've done your due diligence and you've set yourself up, you've been enjoying your food, like all those things I just mentioned, then this is the part at which you put your fork down or do your ritual to, um, end the ritual of eating. And I want you to have a positive expectation about that. That's number 7. Just be like, this is it. I hit it. Now I get to put my fork down. Because it's this moment right here where your brain might tell you a story about why you don't want to do this. But if you can just be willing to anyway and put that fork down, that is all the difference between not losing weight and losing weight is that moment right there. And if you can get there and put that fork down, I want you to celebrate the fuck out of that. Give yourself positive feedback. When you do this, like maybe you could make like, arms over the head, like, I don't know, say good job. I don't know, give yourself like a literal pat on the back, share your progress with your accountability group or your partner. This will reinforce what you've been doing, all these steps, as something that's positive. And we want to track this new habit into the brain and then provide a lot of practice over time so that you have this sense of getting better and better and better at doing this. Okay. And so this is how we can figure out how to eat a little bit less and still feel satisfied. Okay. I've given you the secrets. Here's another quote for you. Let's see. This is by G.K. Chesterton. And he said, or she said, I don't know if it's a man or a woman. There are 2 ways to get enough. One is to continue to accumulate more and more, and the other is to desire less. And this is really like the trick for mindset work, where you can just start believing that less is always best. That, like, desiring less is the keys to the castle of everything that you want, right? And you want it to be a healthy less. 7/10 instead of 8/10, 7/10 instead of 9/10, or wherever you've been eating to. Okay. So Stop believing when your brain says more is better. Just be like, no, brain, you're so confused. I actually want to eat less, but there's ways that eating less can feel hard, and there's ways that eating less can feel amazing. Okay. So I have some homework questions for you to more fully explore after you practice this a few times or even just one time. You can answer some of these questions. All right. And answering the questions will give your brain language, practice, clarity, and discernment around how you want to eat most of the time, which is to 7/10 full. Okay. Here's your question one. What exactly does it feel like when you've eaten to completely full, meaning 10 out of 10 parts full? What does it feel like when you've eaten to completely full, 10 out of 10 parts full? Number two, you can guess what this one's going to be. What does it feel like when you're done eating a meal that will maintain your weight or eating to 8 out of 10 parts full? And number three, what does it feel like when you're done eating a meal that is physically enough, but a number of bites less than you would typically eat to maintain, which is what we're going for, 7 out of 10 parts full? What does that feel like? Like, pretend you are describing this to an alien who doesn't have a gastrointestinal system, right? Describe it. Give your brain words to describe what each of these feels like: overfull, eating to maintain, and eating to lose weight, so that your brain has clarity to give you feedback about when you've reached each one. The more aware you can be of how many parts full you're eating to, the better of control you're going to be able to have to create what you want here. Okay. Question number 4. What does it feel like when you are done eating a meal that isn't enough food physically? So this is under eating. This is like what it felt like to restrictive diet, push past hunger, save up calories. What does that feel like? Because this is really important too, because your brain, if you're asking it to say eat to 7/10 full instead of 9/10 full or 8/10 full, like you've been eating, it will say, oh, that's going to feel like dieting again. But what I find is when I really ask my clients a lot of questions when they have resistance to eating a little bit less, is that restriction, like diet restriction eating, is usually around like half full or sometimes even less. This is not half full. This is 7/10 full. Okay. There is 2 full tenths difference between the two. And the truth is, if eating to 7/10 full feels too hard, bump it up to 8/10 full and see if that feels easier for a week, and then see what happens on the scale. We're only ever just guessing about what is the right amount, and then we weigh in to get feedback on what our hypothesis gives us. Okay. So work at the leading edge of what feels possible to you without freaking out your nervous system. Okay. Um, Number 5. What do you suppose why you might have resistance to eating a little bit less? Why do you suppose you might have resistance to eating a little bit less? What is inner you worried about if you have, in fact, eaten enough food to physically 7/10 full? What are you worried about? The answer to that question is super important. And number 6 takes that to another step. Number 6 says, for your answer to number 5, what can you do to anticipate this need and meet it ahead of time, knowing you will feel this way when you practice eating to 7/10 full? So let me give you a quick example. A lot of times when I explore with my clients their resistance to eating a little bit less, like one example is they don't want to stop eating. Like they're okay with stopping, but when they really ask like their inner self, like, why do you want to keep eating if we've actually physically had enough? A lot of times the answer is, well, I know when I'm done eating, I have to clean the kitchen, vacuum, do laundry, and like a number of other things that don't feel relaxing. I can't tell you how many clients I have that expect themselves to do a lot of work after dinner. Now, sometimes we can't get a pass out of that, but we can certainly, if you don't have to work after dinner, try to get that shit done before you eat your dinner. And that way, your inner self doesn't have an objection to stopping dinner, right? It's almost like why we procrastinate snack at 3 p.m. because we're tired. Like we've probably been in front of the computer or working for too long and we really need a break. But if you don't give yourself that break, your brain will always ask for a snack to get the break. So just notice like if you have resistance to eating a little bit less, figure out what that is, which is question number 5. And like, what is inner you really looking for? Why is she resisting eating less? What is she worried about? Get those thoughts down on paper and really have a good look at them. And if you have more questions, come to Instagram and let me know like what those are and we can explore more. And this is why private coaching is so good for people because you can we can explore some of this thinking that you may not even be aware that is running underneath the surface of your awareness around your habits around eating. Um, so yeah, that's what I have for you on the secrets to eating less and feeling satisfied. I hope it's been helpful. I know there's been a lot here, so you might want to listen a couple of times, take notes, get these podcast questions down and, give yourself some time to really work with this. Like when I say give yourself time, like this might be the summer that you figure out how to eat to 7/10 full. It may take you 12 full weeks, but I guarantee you, if you can just come to your meal, I don't know, 3, 4 times a week for 12 weeks and really do all of these steps distraction free, answer the questions, get really clear about when you hit those markers as you eat. This is a game changer for weight loss. Okay. I hope it's really helpful for you. Come see me on Instagram. Give me a comment. Let me know how you found the episode. I really love hearing from all of you. And if you haven't signed up for my email list, please do that because I am now doing bonus Q&A episodes here on the podcast from those of you who are on my email list. And I'd love to, be able to coach you a little bit, even if we can't work together one-on-one. Okay. So stay focused and so long. Hey, if this episode resonated for you, then let's connect. Visit hbeardsley.com/subscribe. That's HBEARDSLEY.com/subscribe and get on the list. You'll get a free gift, periodic coaching, plus advance notice of in-person events and workshops.